Welcome to the WHAKA 100 podcast, brought to you by Team CP. The WHAKA 100, the largest and toughest one-day mountain bike marathon you'll ever do.
Turn on the weather for us. I'm just looking for some legs. Can you show me some legs? Everyone's running good, looking good too.
Now, let's send it over to Team CP.
Turn it up. Let's see how high we can go. Turn it up. No stopping till we lose all control. Turn it up until we feel it down in our soul. Let's see how high we can go.
Oh, I do love that intro. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of our WHAKA 100 special, episode 2 for our 2023 podcast. Richard Greer, welcome back. Welcome to the studio, mate.
Good stuff. It's great to be back. Visiting about riding mountain bikes. Have you been riding your mountain bike much, Angus?
Mate, no. It's
Do
pretty
you want to
disappointing.
ride your mountain bike lots,
Mate, I
though?
want to do. Of course, I want to ride my bike, mate. Everybody always want to ride my bike, just never sort of get round to it at the moment. It's quite disappointing. It's the same story every episode at the moment, isn't it?
But
You think I'd
the
do
want
something
is
about
there.
that?
It's keenness. That's the key.
Look, mate,
That's the key.
I can actually almost reach here and touch it. That's how close it is to me. It's like just there, mate.
Yeah. You've touched it on the way into the studio, though, haven't you?
Yeah,
Make sure it's still
absolutely. Give it
okay.
the old lucky. That's my, I actually touch all sort of, dozen bikes hanging on the wall as I come into the studio. That's like my ritual. You come in, you touch every bike.
Get in the zone.
Mate, high five. Yeah.
Yes. It's going to be a good show. How good. We've got a nutrition podcast to do tonight.
We have, and thanks to, first of all, thanks to WHAKA 100 again for having us. And episode 2, sponsored by KODA Nutrition. And we are going to focus, like you said, on some nutrition off the bike, on the bike, all of those things. But Team CP, our podcast, super proud to be a part of this again, mate.
Yeah, no, it's really cool, isn't it? It's a great event, and great for you and I to be part of this, to share some of the learning we've had over the years, and to bring you some stories, and hopefully help you out with your training nutrition, your on the bike and off the bike nutrition is what we're going to talk to you today, and we're going to have a chat to Cushla Holdaway, who's a registered dietitian. So hopefully get that dialed in and answer lots of questions, so you can turn up and know that you're going to have a good day. I mean, this thing is an endurance event, isn't it? It's a beast. And there's lots of different events within it, from 5, 10, 25, 50, 100 miler, etc. But basically, if you don't fuel your body properly, you're probably going to have a sad face across the finish line. But if you get that nutrition right, you're going to enjoy your day. You're going to have more fun. You're going to bomb the downhills, and the uphills aren't going to feel so bad.
You're probably going to have a sad face till about sort of 20 meters before the finish line. Then once you get to 20 meters before the finish line, surely that sad face is going to go away, because you can see the finish banner and things like that. But
It's definitely going to help.
Yeah, absolutely dead right. WHAKA has definitely been always one of those ones where nutrition is key. It's such a taxing ride, and full of concentration and technical riding and stuff. So definitely is one of those. And with that, of course, KODA, tonight's sponsor, they are doing a couple of things. They're offering 20% off on the website, on the kodanutrition.co.nz website. Use code HelloWHAKA100 and get yourself 20% off their great nutrition. But also, during the show, we will be giving away a KODA Nutrition pack. What we want you to do is as always, just comment however you're watching this, whether you're on the WHAKA 100 Facebook page or whether you're on our Team CP one. Make a comment. Tell us maybe a nutrition story, or maybe something that you learn from later in the show, and you'll go in the draw to win a KODA Nutrition prize pack, mate.
Yeah, and if you've got any questions as well, throw those at us too, and we'll do our best to answer those as well. So yeah, the more engaged you are, the more chance you've got of winning that prize pack as well.
Yeah. Now, speaking of prizes, we've got one to give away from last week.
We have got one to give away for last week. I'm going to leave you hanging for a moment to see who won that. We had a Sweet Cheeks prize pack there with lots of goodies in it. I'm going to leave you hanging to the next part of the show to see who actually come up with that. So we'll just hang out there for a little bit. So if you made a comment,
the gun was I getting all excited about having our first winner.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll get into that shortly as well. But we've got our first guest sitting backstage.
You want to bring him in? Jace, come in, mate. Come in, caller.
Hello.
I think that was my cue, mate. I think what he was doing there was trying to
You
cue
missed
me
it,
to.
Angus.
All good, all good. Jace, you like riding bikes, I hear. Is that, and that's part of the reason you're sitting here tonight?
I do, Richard. I like riding bikes.
Yeah,
Who
excellent.
doesn't?
Tell us a little.
That's why we're
good.
here.
Tell us a little bit more about your background. How long you've been riding bikes? Why do you like riding bikes so much? And yeah, give us a bit of an update about where you're at right now.
I guess I've been riding mountain bikes for about 10 years or so. And in the last 7 or 8, I've been taking a little bit more serious. I guess initially it was all downhill kind of riding, trail riding, all that kind of stuff. And then I thought, I'll get a road bike. I'll try to be a little bit more serious about my riding and do a bit of XC to the chagrin of my mates who don't want to have anything to do with Lycra at all.
Yeah.
So I've been doing that for about 6 or 7 years. And if you'd asked me about 6 years ago if I would have ridden my mountain bike 100K, I would have definitely said not a chance.
Excellent. So how many WHAKA 100 events have you done? It's been around for about that long as well.
Yes, I've done the last 2. I've got a 50% success rate. I got 100% unsuccessful rate with mechanicals in both races.
Ooh.
So this year I want a boring race. That is my plan, to be nice and boring.
Yeah. Can you not just have a spare bike? Look like you got a few. Can you just sort of have a different one halfway through or something?
That's a good idea. I don't know if it'll help me any.
Well, actually,
maybe an e-bike.
Yeah, that's the way, mate. Can I just ask a quick question? Because actually last week we talked about, we had race director Tim on, and we did talk about the importance of bike maintenance and things like that. Just quickly delve into those mechanicals. Were they down to poor maintenance or anything like that, or was it just pure bad luck?
So the first one, it was bad luck. It was a snap chain, and basically it was my race brain and lack of ability that I couldn't fix it. And I guess I give up a little bit too easy at about the 35K point. Couldn't work out how to fix it because I had a fuzzy head. And yeah, that was the first race gone. The second race, at about 40K, my rear rotor sheared off. So I had to limp the next 5 to 10K to the aid station. And Jason there, the mechanic, managed to kind of get it back together. And I managed to finish the race with 2 breaks. So awesome. That I was very pleased with.
Excellent. So we just went boring. I like it. I understand why you went boring now.
Boring. Yeah. And honestly, it used to happen at the WHAKA.
Yeah, I guess that's part of it, isn't it? There's so much, like, you're out there for so long. The track's pretty tough. There are a bunch of different things that can go wrong. So I guess managing yourself, managing your bike, and sometimes it's not about full steam ahead. It's actually just about just looking after things on the downhill and just making sure you get there in one piece.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's also a top tip is to learn a little bit of trail maintenance before you get out there and ride kind of 7-8 hours or whatever it's going to take you. Learn to or practice to fix your chain a couple of times and puncture as well. The basic stuff.
And your bike shop, local bike shop's going to be able to help you with that. Generally, most bike shops, bike mechanics are pretty keen to share that stuff, aren't they? So just go in and it might not be then and there because it might be busy, but just go in and ask them and they'll, I'm sure they'll definitely help you out. And there's also a lot of YouTube stuff out there as well, isn't there, in terms of, okay, how to actually do it and get an old chain and just play with it, practice it. And just like anything, if you practice it, you'll get better at it.
I've seen those YouTube videos of people changing tires and things, and they get the aerosol can and fill it up full of the aerosol, then light a match and it explodes back onto the rim. Is that recommended, Rich? What did I go down the wrong YouTube rabbit hole when I was watching that?
Sounds good though. Sounds like some good YouTube video. I'd like to see you do that and see what the moustache looks like at the end. Yeah, that's awesome. So what makes WHAKA so special in your opinion, Jace? You've ridden all over the world. I saw you at the BC bike race just recently as well. How does, with all the riding that you've done, why is the WHAKA 100 so special?
I've done a lot of races in the last 5 years, and the WHAKA 100 is special because one, the size of it and the scale of it. It's like whole community weekend, like-minded riders. You bump into people that you haven't seen for a while, or you bump into the same people at races. So it's a big community, and it's, like I said, the biggest kind of mountain bike race in New Zealand. So the sheer scale of people that are involved in it makes it special to start off with, and how well it's organized, and also for us, the length of it. the length of it makes it a lot different, time-wise, mainly from any other race kind of out there in New Zealand.
Yeah, and it's not a given, is it? Like, you can't just turn up and finish this thing. Like, your bike needs to stay in one piece. Obviously, your skills have got to be good, but just the amount of elevation and stuff involved in it as well. Like, it's a big job. It's a marathon event, isn't it?
It is, and it's no mean feat finishing it either, as I've proved. There's there's a few grade 4s out there, which if you're comfortable riding those, they're fine. They're very rideable. It's all rideable, but there are a couple of kind of long, 20-30 minute climbs that you need to get your head around as well during the race. And Tim's put a fair few kind of shockers in towards the end of the race that will that will kick you in the backside as well.
Yeah, just jump into one of those shockers, actually. Thanks, Tim Farmer, for your comment on the Facebook page. Richard Greer, is the final creek crossing water okay to drink? It's a good question, actually. I wouldn't recommend it, let's say. And maybe you want to drink out of it early rather than later in the day. Let's just say that.
I just think, I don't know how we aren't. We're just so unprepared, mate. I really think we should just constantly have that photo on just sitting there ready to go.
I think you do.
Look, we could have talktalked about, did you have your mouth wide open? How much water did you get in that?
All those good things. It's interesting, isn't it? Because you load it up every show, and then somehow it just goes missing. So I don't know how that happens, but just keep doing your work, Angus.
Imagine if somebody sent it to me now and I managed to upload it while you were chatting, Richard. You listening, Tim?
Imagine that. I don't think that would happen. Tim's a good guy. I can trust him. So, Jason, we're talking about the fact that, like, it's a technical course. Like, thinking about skills and riding your bike, what should somebody, and we're going to talk a bit more about this in our next podcast, actually, around skills and things. But from your opinion, what are some things that people should be practicing on their bike around navigating the terrain?
I think one big factor is, because it's so long and your fatigue level gets so high, it's practicing conserving your energy, pumping, and getting free speed when you can, especially on those downhills or those slightly downhills. The more free speed you get, the more energy you're going to conserve, and also trying to relax at the same time. That's going to put you in good stead for the last kind of 20, 30, 40 Ks of the race.
Yeah. And that relaxing's about your upper body as well, too, isn't it? Like, often that's the thing that gets tired because of all the downhill, just kind of holding yourself together.
Yes, it definitely does. The less familiar and less comfortable you are on those downhills, the more you're tensing up, and you need to kind of try to practice to relax and maybe put a smile on your face when you're going downhill. That will relax your facial muscles and maybe your neck and shoulders too.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing. Actually, you do go faster if you smile. That's a definitely a known thing, and therefore you do relax too, don't you? And you can enjoy it more. And sometimes, like when we talked to Sammy Maxwell, she talked about actually emphasizing smiling at the aid stations, or trying to actually think about preparing so you're ready to do that. So when you go past that aid station, actually, I'm going to make the most of those bits, and if you smile, you generally feel better as well.
Yes, definitely. I have to try to smile towards the top of those hills. I think that's it.
It's a good time to be smiling. I had a question down here: is what's your goals for the event? So I think we already know that what the goal is actually just to get across the finish line in one piece. But is there anything underneath that for you? Have you got a kind of certain time, or the key people that have got a big target on their back that you're looking to try and maybe get past?
I think for me, it's all about pacing. So I'm going to try to kind of start off a little bit slower this year. I looked at my times for last year, and my last 30K was half an hour slower than my first 30K with about the same elevation.
Okay.
So it's all about trying to maintain that pace and trying to start off a lot slower, because it's a hell of a lot better passing people towards the end of the race. And kind of my objective is to try to get in the top half, and to do that, I kind of need to do 7:45, under 8 hours, basically. 7:45 is a good kind of benchmark. If it's a boring race, If it's a
I
boring
mean,
race.
it will be a boring race. Yeah, I hope we get to see you at the finish line and you're looking a bit bored as well. Like,
I'll be asleep with a beer in the hand.
yeah, so good. Nice work. Yeah, carry on.
I was just going to say, what's your strategy around some of those technical things? Are you a full bore, going to ride it all, not going to get off guy, or are you going to take a little bit of safety in a couple of places?
That's the only bit I'm good at, so I'm going to go full bore and try to make up as much time as I can on those downhill descents. Really, that's for me. That's for me. That's the fun bit. That's the bit I can kind of get a bit more time on, or try to relax and try to save energy on.
Yeah,
So
A
yes,
lines,
I'm going to ride
house.
everything.
Yeah,
Yes.
give it heaps. Yeah, so good. Excellent. Sounds a bit like you riding your bike, Angus.
100%, mate. Like,
Yep.
Do you remember when I used to ride a bike?
Well, I think
It's
that's one
like-
thing about riding with you. That's one thing we've always done well together, is we go downhill pretty well. So it's
We
always
do.
good fun when you ride downhill with someone else, isn't it?
except for that one stage in Pioneer where I might have crashed on that shingle road and downhill, and
Took
you
me
might have
out.
just happened to go straight over the top of me.
Yes,
Hey,
yes,
listen.
yes.
Sorry. Okay, thanks. Yeah, no good. Hey, Rich, I've just got our director on the line there, mate. He just says, what's going on here? Let's have a look here. Oh, look. Would you look at that, Huck? Now, we
How did that
can't
happen?
actually quite see whether you're going to have a drink there or not, mate.
So that's inconclusive at this stage, isn't it? So I might have saved that, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and actually, we're just going through some historics just to see if we can get another angle at that, get a third umpire's view from the other direction there, mate.
Yeah. So at this stage, we're unsure about that. So whether it's good to drink it. Some of those droplets look pretty clear, though, didn't they?
Yep, fresh, mate, fresh.
Good stuff. Jace, is there any sort of parting comments in terms of advice you would like to give to maybe those first timers that are turning up to this event and they're maybe pretty nervous about it or not sure exactly how to prepare from your perspective?
I think it's. I think enjoy the process. The process starts now, or it started months ago when you started training. So enjoy the whole process all the way up to the race. Enjoy the atmosphere. You've worked hard to get there. So if you enjoy the process, it doesn't matter as much what the result of the race is. I think you've enjoyed it for the last 6 months or so. So yeah.
Yeah, good. Basically, what you're saying is enjoy riding your bike, and you'll be good.
Definitely. We all like riding bikes.
Can I leave you with one bit of advice, and that is to maybe go and talk to your mates and just tell them that you don't have to wear lycra to ride XC. Sammy Shaw will be somebody. He will definitely, he'll attest to that. That baggies is where it's at. So get them on a bike, get them on an XC bike, and get them to the WHAKA.
I convinced 2 of them to do it last year. So
Nice.
yeah, they're on the bike. They won't wear lycra.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
We won't judge them for that.
No, that's right.
No,
It's
not
the
at
whole
all.
togs undie situation, isn't it?
But when they're
Yes.
when they're 5 minutes behind you, you'll be able to say, mate, aero gains in that lycra, and yeah.
Well, that's right.
Yeah. Good
Hey,
job.
great.
Excellent.
Thanks, Jace. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, and all the
Pleasure.
best. Enjoy
Thanks
riding
for
your bike,
having
and we look forward to seeing you in October.
Yep. See you in October.
Good job. Well done.
Thanks, Jace.
Good job. And speaking of baggies and riding a bike, probably need some Sweet Cheeks, which was our guest that our what's the word?
Last
Sponsor from
episode.
last week. Yeah, sponsor. So I did do some tongue tying over last week. So Chris Meyer, big shout out to you. You have won that, and that Sweet Cheeks prize pack will be on the way to you.
Beautiful. How good. How good.
That's right.
And again, we're the gift that keeps on giving. KODA Nutrition, of course. This episode giving away a nutrition pack, so make a comment in there. In fact, actually, we might just quickly touch on a couple of those because Emma, we need to clarify Emma Jane's question, which is Richard still recommending the custard squares? I mean, I don't think it matters whether this is a total nutrition question. This isn't just WHAKA because custard squares go anywhere.
They do go anywhere. It's. I would still say it's a perfect food. Like the fat, the protein, the carbohydrate, and layers basically that you're getting there. And it's also becomes it's almost its own sport, isn't it? Like, can you transport that custard square to somewhere remote and the more remote it is and the further away from civilization it becomes, the better it tastes. So yeah, no, 100% recommend that. And I think it's that also the enjoyment factor and the little bit of epicness is like, look at me, I'm eating my custard square in the middle of this. How good.
And it's one of those things too, like, if you do get stuck for room, if your backpack's not all that big, well, you can always give it the old squasharoonie and, make it a slice more than a square,
That's
I
right.
suppose.
That's right. And it still tastes good. Sometimes it needs to sort of soften up a little bit over the course of the day. Absolutely.
So I hope that answers your question, Emma. Look, they don't want to hear our bad nutrition advice. How about we roll part 1 of our interview with Cushla, Rich?
Yeah, sounds good. Well done. Welcoming Cushla Holdaway to the show. Super stoked to talk to you tonight, Cushla. You are a registered dietitian. You are basically on board to help WHAKA participants out to get to the start line and manage their nutrition. But you're also somebody that is out there doing it for themselves in terms of events and things like that yourself. Do you want to just give us a bit more of a background in terms of your job, your role, what you do day to day, etc., Cushla?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Richard. So I'm an accredited sports dietitian and I'm based in mid-Canterbury, and I work with people all over New Zealand and further afield as well. And I guess my special area is the endurance athletes, so hence why I'm involved in WHAKA. I love endurance and all endurance sports, particularly running. Do get out on the bike a little bit. And yeah, I also do quite a bit of clinical work in dietetics as well. So I really like the mixture of the two and how they can come together to help people.
Yeah, good. And it's so like, if you fuel your body well, you're going to perform well, aren't you? But if you don't fuel your body well, you're not going to perform well. And we're going to talk in two parts today. We're going to talk about on the bike stuff. That's in our part 2. But then we're going to kick off with the off the bike stuff. It's the how you eat from day to day. It's the what do you do before you jump on your bike, when you jump off your bike after a training session, etc. You've got to get that off the bike stuff sorted as well, don't you? Because you can't just turn up and fuel your body well on the bike if you're missing key areas of your nutrition off the bike.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think a lot of people focus on hours and hours of training, but if you're not putting the ingredients back in from a nutrition perspective, you're just not going to reap the rewards from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nice work. So let's talk about that baseline nutrition and how do we get that dialed in. What are your top rules for a balanced diet? Obviously, people are busy, all those sorts of things as well. What are some key things that we need to be making sure that we get as key rocks in our sort of day-to-day nutrition?
Well, the first rule is there are no rules with nutrition. I think there's perfect concepts, but there's no such thing as a perfect diet. And what works for one person is going to be entirely different for someone else. And I think that's where, there's the healthy eating guidelines out there, of course, through the Ministry of Health in New Zealand. And they're a really great place to start. But again, generic advice isn't great for every single person, but it builds some of the foundational ideas there. I think a really important thing I'd love to emphasize is when people are really busy, like you mentioned in their working lives, is nutrition can become the last thing they're worrying about in the day. And suddenly the nutrition's really sporadic and they're skipping meals or they're grabbing and eating on the go, which may not always be the most optimal food. So I think it comes back to organization and being prepared a lot with nutrition too.
Right. Nice. Okay. So that's Sunday night and I'm organizing what I'm going to eat for the week and maybe doing some sort of a few meals at the same time, those sorts of things.
Definitely. I hate food prep. So I'm never going to tell people to spend half your Sunday in the kitchen preparing chicken and broccoli and rice. Like, who on earth would want to do that?
Yeah.
I'm very much like, if you're making a dinner the night before, make extra and literally take a serving as leftovers. It takes no extra time or effort. You just do it in one meal and eat a really good meal for lunch.
And that means you're getting your protein in, doesn't it? During lunchtime is often what doesn't happen. And then also you're getting some veggies and other good stuff, good nutrition and their nutrients as well.
Yes. And protein, I think the protein part of meals, well, firstly, it's actually the most expensive part generally, but it's also the part of the meal that takes the most time or preparation to cook, unless it's something like canned fish. A lot of people, have tuna in their lunches and things, but it's the thing that takes the most time. So people often under consume protein a lot until it's the last meal of the day.
Okay, right. So on that timing and protein intake, do you want to talk to us a little bit more about that and how we should be emphasizing that?
Protein needs for athletes are a lot higher than what is generally recommended for the general population. And your specific needs will be individual for you, but I'd say most endurance athletes doing a reasonable amount of training would be between about 1.4 and 2 grams of protein per kg body weight a day. Isn't that a mouthful? But what that looks like in really easy terms is I like to say target 30 grams of protein per main meal, assuming you're having 3 main meals a day. Most people do not achieve that at breakfast and lunch, and they'll overconsume easily that in dinner. So it's about firstly meeting your overall needs, but also secondly ensuring it's evenly spread throughout the day.
Okay, and why does it need to be overly spread throughout your day? What does that mean? How does that change the way we're eating and our bodies if we're getting it during the day at some point?
Well, protein has the building blocks, amino acids, and we need them continually coming in throughout the day to help repair and rebuild our tissues. And as an athlete, our recovery process is constant. It's going on every hour of the day. So ensuring getting our protein in is really important to how we adapt as an athlete to our training load. And secondly, in terms of everyday health, it's really important in how we feel satisfied between our meals, and also a key regulator in helping our blood glucose levels remain relatively stable.
Okay, right. So therefore, if we're eating a good amount of protein during the day, we're going to be feeling more sustained. So then we're going to be not overeating during the day. Is that what you're saying?
You'll feel a lot more satisfied. A lot of people say, oh, after every meal, I'm still hungry or I have a sweet craving. And I often question, firstly, are they eating enough in their day? And secondly, are their meals actually containing enough protein? And usually it's one or both of the two, because you shouldn't feel constantly hungry and have cravings all day long. That's not normal.
Okay, right. So that takes me to my next sort of point around based on nutrition in regards to snacking and things. What are we doing with that, especially in regards to, as an athlete, we're trying to recover, we're trying to prepare for a bike ride session that we've got coming later on. What are some rules around snacking, and what are maybe some good ideas around snacks as well?
Snacking's a tricky one, and it really depends on the individual and what their training will look like. I think if someone's completely sedentary, you can probably get by on 3 decent main meals a day and not need snacks in between, given you can consume enough at those meals. Some people physically can't eat large meals. When you're really active, though, you're going to need more in your day, especially if you might be doing double days with training, like morning and night. And also thinking that you might be having a snack before you train, possibly snacks during, depending on how long the session is, and after for recovery if your next main meal isn't straight away. So that's where it is different for more active people, is you do need extra fuel to meet your needs.
Okay. What are some good things that we could take on board as snacks? Like, what are some ideas? What do you recommend for people that need some snacks?
Unless it's directly before exercise, always ensure there's protein in a snack. That's the most important thing. If you're just snacking on carbohydrates, you will not feel satisfied, and you'll probably keep snacking throughout the day. So protein first, and that could be something like dairy is often a really easy source. So that could be like some protein yogurt or some cheese, could be some nuts, which are really high in healthy fat and fiber, could be a nut bar, which is easy to have on the go if you're busy at work. What else? You could have a small can of tuna. They're really handy to have, and omega-3s in that as well. You could have fruit and some dark chocolate. There's just so many options.
Okay. Right. Cool. No, that's really good. And let's talk about obviously around this baseline nutrition. We're going to put this all about off the bike nutrition. So that becomes down to pre-race, pre-training nutrition, and then also recovery nutrition as well. So let's talk a little bit about that pre-race stuff. I guess it's what are we having? When are we having it? How much carbs and protein are we looking at, and maybe some ideas? So what are your thoughts around, I guess, timing for a start?
Is this for every day, or is this for training or racing?
Let's think about every day, and I guess this is going to then evolve into simulation of the race day as well, isn't it?
If we're starting at the beginning of the day, something I would encourage most people to not do would be train fasted on a regular basis, especially females. If you're wanting to get the most out of every training session, then you need to be having fuel in your system to do that. Getting up after a fast of 10 to 12 hours with minimal water and no food and expecting to get a good session is not realistic. And I know people say, oh, but I don't have time. I just need to get straight on the bike or out the door. But realistically, you can actually have half a banana or even maybe a little bit of sports drink on the bike, depending on what you're up to. That's going to help you get more out of that session. And if you're fueled, you'll also recover better and feel better through the day as well.
So it is about quality, but it's also about what's the next training session going to be about. So what you're saying there is, and this probably comes in down the track a little bit, but if I'm not as low and it doesn't beat me up so much, I'm going to be able to recover better, and then I'm going to do tomorrow's session better as well, rather than just slowly getting worse and worse throughout the week.
Yes, and especially if you're someone who's prone to injuries, you're just not helping yourself if you're getting up and not fueling your sessions.
Okay, right. So let's evolve that into race day, and what are we doing? When are we doing things? So race day depends really, because if you're rolling up for the 100 miler, that starts sort of in night time really. So it's 5 something. It felt like it was middle of the night anyway. And then with 100 is like, it was 8 o'clock or something like that. Kickoff is, and then it also depends on when your wave starts. So it might be not till 9:30 you actually get started as well. So I guess there's a big different group of people we're talking about, but what are some key things we want to think about in regards to timing and also amounts of breakfast we're having?
With races that start really early in the morning, it's kind of a fine line between how much sleep do you want to get and how much time do you want for digestion, and it's usually a bit of a balance of the two, because ideally when it comes to sports nutrition, 2 to 4 hours before you start your event's ideal for your main meal. But I mean, if you're rewinding, say, 4 hours back from 5 a.m., that's getting a bit ridiculous, isn't it? So it might be having a lighter but carb-rich breakfast a couple of hours before, and you've practiced that timing, gotten up at 3 a.m. and actually tried to eat at that time, and getting out training early to mimic race day. That might be better for someone starting that early. For someone starting at 7 or 8 a.m., it's a bit more realistic to probably have a bit of a larger meal if they can stomach that. But 2 to 4 hours is optimal for the main meal, and then most people would like a top-up snack that could be 30 minutes before as well.
And I guess it also comes down to, therefore, if you don't have such a big amount early on, like you actually just need to start eating on the bike, like actually get the fuel going on the bike and actual proper food early on if you just can't stomach breakfast, because we've also got to consider nerves, don't we?
Yes, and that's what trips a lot of people up, is they may not practice firstly earlier enough in their training, and then they don't consider just how nervous they might be on the day. And it's really horrible when you know you need to fuel and you just physically feel so sick.
Oh, it's awful, isn't it?
It is awful. Yeah.
One thing I've played with WHAKA is actually the thing that's different between this and like a running race is that you can eat a bit more. You can have a fuller stomach on the bike, like doing the 100 and the 100 miler. I had a sort of reasonably big breakfast, which for the 100K event, I didn't really feel like eating anything until halfway through, like 3 hours down the track, because I was still, I don't know, kind of full. And then I started eating stuff sort of once I was into it. So again, it's just personal preference, isn't it? And seeing what you can practice and see what you actually do. But if you have that bigger breakfast, and then it might help to also just pace you a little bit as well. Like sometimes these events, like any event, we just are too excited. There's that exciting loud music playing, and we just hit out of the gate like a far too fast, and then blow up because we're cramping and stuff, because we've actually just started too fast. So a bigger breakfast might help slow you down and help the rest of your day as well, maybe.
Yeah, especially if you're doing something like the miler, exactly. But that is the benefit of like road cycling or mountain biking versus running, is you don't have that jiggling motion. The only thing that's probably worth considering is the pressure or the angle you're on in terms of maybe reflux and symptoms like that. But you can get away with a little bit more on the bike than running.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Yep. So some ideas. What are we thinking of for a pre-race breakfast? What are some options that you would guide people to have a play with?
Yeah, so when we're thinking about a breakfast, it needs to be high in carbs. That's obvious. But we, contrary to what we're doing everyday nutrition, we actually want this meal to be quite low in fiber, moderate to low protein, and quite low fat. And the reason for that is it's going to move through our digestive system a bit more easily and not sit in our stomach heavily for hours, which we don't want when we're going out to do a hard race. So that could look like something like maybe 2 to 3 bits of nice thick white toast with a little bit of peanut butter, jam, honey, and maybe a coffee and some sports drink or water. It could be a nice big bowl of oats with banana and honey and maybe some dried fruit, plus or minus toast, depends on how much you can eat. It could be crumpets with maple syrup, It could be muesli and milk, depending on what you're after. Yeah, anything goes.
Good. And you mentioned sports drink. Like that's quite a nice wee way to just, I guess, get some extra carbs on board as well without sort of making you feel too full either.
Especially if you're feeling a bit nervous. I've certainly found myself before some races, I was like, even as a dietitian, like, this is fine, I'll be all good. And then it gets to the day and you just didn't anticipate how nervous you would feel. And if you can't finish your breakfast, then it's good to have a backup of sports drink that you can sip away until the race starts. So you know in your mind you're getting the rough amount of carbs you were hoping to get in the first place.
Yep. And the other really useful thing is thinking about it's not all about breakfast. Don't worry about breakfast too much. Also, what about that sort of pre-race snack that, like, I don't know, an hour, half an hour before? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, it depends on how you're feeling. Some people love it, some people not a fan. But it can be helpful to have a little bit of a boost, and that could just be like a gel or some jet planes, or again just swigging away on some sports drink. But it can just help again to top up your tank before you're about to go out and have quite a big day on the bike. But even more important than your race day breakfast is what I would say is the days leading up to the event, which a lot of people can overlook as well.
Yep. So tell me more about that. What are we thinking about there?
Well, as an endurance athlete, your tanks you'll be using on race day, your glycogen tanks, and they're your storage system of carbohydrates, simply put, in your liver and your muscles. And you need them primed and full because your body will be pulling on them when you're out there for hours and hours on end. So how we do that is you're naturally going to be tapering off before a big main event anyway, so you won't be using as much. But we want to make sure that they're nice and saturated and full by increasing what we would typically eat in carbohydrates, or maybe about the same because you're not doing as much activity. So your meals may just include a little bit more carbohydrate than normal. And instead of like protein-rich snacks, maybe they're more carbohydrate-rich snacks instead.
Yep. Okay. So can we have a few extra jet planes just sort of floating around in the car center console instead of peanuts or anything?
Yeah. Or like instead of like, nuts as a snack, you might go for more oat-based bars, or including sports drink in the day prior instead of just relying on water. Having a bit of both is a really efficient way of getting carbs, electrolytes, and fluid.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, that's some really good advice there. That's fantastic. And okay, so that's that sort of breakfast. It's the pre-race little snack. And I guess the other thing I was mentioning there was around the like it could be that you have a banana or a bar if your breakfast didn't go so well. And you might have it or not have it depending on how you feel, eh? Yep. So just some ideas. Righto. So let's talk about recovery. Recovery from training, recovery from the race day. It probably doesn't matter. You should have a beer in your hand, really, shouldn't you? So let's talk about training. What are we thinking about? When should we be starting that recovery? What are some ideas around what I could actually have?
In terms of recovery, the sooner you get it in, the better it'll be.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people have in their minds that if you don't get it in within an hour, you've missed the boat and you won't recover. Right. That's not true. Physiologically, our body is constantly recovering after sessions. That's what it's doing, rebuilding and regenerating. What we do know, though, is the sooner you get it in, the better you will be. So as soon as you can, realistically, so that might be in the 30 minutes after or hopefully within an hour. And the key ingredients into recovering well is ensuring you have protein. You need some carbs and you need some fluid. Okay. They're the three most important things.
So in terms of that time, what's happening over time? Like when I'm first finishing, I guess I've got lots of blood flow going to the muscles that have been working. So the quicker we can get something on board, then the nutrients are going to get down to those muscles that need it. Is that what happens?
Yeah, and it's just been through studies as well. They've found that the optimization of what your body can take up in those muscles is best in that first 60 minutes. And then it tapers off. So it doesn't switch off. It's just best as soon as you can after would be the key message there.
Okay, so carbohydrates, protein, how much?
If it's a snack, again, for a meal, I'd say, it depends on your needs, but aiming for that 30 grams of protein in your main meal. And then carbohydrates could vary a lot depending on what you need as well. But for a recovery snack, if we're talking about that, I would say a sweet spot's around 15 to 20 grams of protein. And you'd
what does that look like?
That could be equivalent to a couple of eggs, or if you've seen those black box up and goes that are the up and go protein versions, they have 17 grams of protein, just FYI. It could be you'd easily get that in a serving of protein powder if you're busy and on the go and just needing a smoothie or protein shake as you're running to work or between your session and heading home. And then in terms of carbohydrate, again, in a snack, it's just what I would say is a fistful. Would be a really great place to start. And then that might tie you over into your next main meal, which would hopefully, again, have those key things of your protein, your carbohydrates, and your plant-based food sources with healthy fat.
Yeah, good. I guess there's two parts in recovery nutrition, isn't there? There's hey, I'm trying to perform really well and I've got this next training session, but some of us need to sort of looking to drop a little bit of weight as well. So therefore, is recovery as important, or should we just be thinking about a next meal in that case?
Yeah, how your recovery meal is and what you eat through the day, especially looking at snacks, will depend on your performance goals, your health, if you've had any recent injuries, but also if you've got body composition goals in there. So for someone who is wanting to like focus on that, then you don't want to take away from that nutrition directly around your session. That's really important. It's probably looking at the other 20 hours of the day and what's happening there, rather than taking away from your recovery or fueling.
Yes. And I guess if you're recovering properly, then you're probably not going to overeat later on as well. So that's probably the piece of the puzzle. I'm not going to eat, so then I won't. So then which is fine for then, but then I just am famished down the track and can't concentrate in my job, etc.
And that comes back to the fasted training again in the morning. A very common pattern I would see is people getting up, doing fasted training, having an okay breakfast, maybe not enough protein. And then as the day goes on, their energy and protein intake increases more and more, and their biggest meals at the end of the day. So there's this complete mismatch happening between when they actually really needed a lot of that good fuel and when it's actually coming in. And that's really important to look at the protein and energy distribution in the day as well.
Nice. Awesome. How do people get in touch with you if they want to talk a bit more about their sort of nutrition and dialing that in prior to race day?
Easily on my website, which is www.holdawaydietitian.com, or they can flick me an email at holdaway.nutrition@gmail.com, or also Instagram, which is Cushla Holdaway _dietitian.
Good stuff. We'll put those in the show notes as well, those how to get in touch with you too. But let's just take a break for a moment, and then we'll come back shortly and talk specifically about how do we sort out our nutrition for on the bike to actually fuel us through race day.
Sounds good.
Good job. Talk soon.
Oh, there we go, Rich. Cushla Holdaway talking us through breakfast. So let's talk about breakfast. What does Richard Greer have for breakfast? What does Richard Greer have for breakfast on a normal day of the week?
On a normal day, I'm just a muesli man, to be honest. Muesli, some fruit, and a bit of yogurt on top. But back from the old days when I was growing up, it was always a bit of sliced fruit under the cornflakes. But we've upped the ante on the cornflakes these days, and had a bit of extra yogurt for some protein. Right. Yep, bit more oomph.
And race day?
Race day, it's probably most of the time the same. And one thing I think I find with this event, again, it fills you up. So and then you don't sort of have to eat too much early on, and as I mentioned to Cushla, it means that you don't have to start too fast either, because you've still got a bit of breakfast there. So it's just a real management job what you can cope with. But I tend to be able to eat most things, to be honest. I tend to save the custard squares for sort of mid to late to recovery.
Nice.
And what about recovery for you?
I was just going to say I was just going to go breakfast quickly because I just remembered that this morning, it's winter time and it's probably one of the great winter breakfasts, isn't it? But I just happened to be flying home from Auckland this morning, so I was in the crew lounge and got a nice hot bowl of porridge, and it's the first bowl of porridge I've had this winter. And
that's right.
I really enjoy myself a good bowl of porridge.
Yeah, and it is good, isn't it? Yeah, warms you up, gets you going. You're going to be right for a little while with the old porridge, and it sustains you. So good to go. Like it.
It doesn't have to be breakfast either. It can be lunch. I used to cook. It used to be a bit of an anytime food for me.
Yeah.
Recovery, mate. Well, I don't even think you need to ask what my post-race recovery is. You're probably going to guess that, but I am partial to a refreshing cold ale of some description.
Okay. Right. And is that if the event goes really well, you celebrate with that, or is it? It doesn't matter how it's gone. Just thank God I'm here.
Yeah, I think if it goes really well, I like to sort of get across that line. If it's been a hot day and it's gone really well, I like to chop that first beer pretty quickly, and then I sort of like to go, well, that was pretty tasty. I better follow that one up with a second while you have your little conversations with everybody. That's pretty good. And I think, mate, if it goes really badly, I like to chop that first beer pretty quickly and drown my sorrows, and then have that second beer while I tell everybody my sad story. So either way, mate, it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, and who cares once you finish your event, sort of thing, isn't it? Let's just celebrate, whatever. But we're sort of getting away from the KODA Nutrition and the sort of looking after yourself scenario. I just want to quickly run through what's in the aid stations on the WHAKA 100. So, because you don't have to take all this stuff yourself, it's super well stocked. The guys do a great job. So we've got KODA Hydration, that's your sports drink. There's Cliff Bars, shot gels, and Cliff Blocks in the aid station, so you can it's a smorgasbord. We've got jet planes, we've got bananas, we've got Red Bull, we've got Coke, and we've also got some brownie as well. So that's not a bad sort of a spread, is it?
How would you go with a Red Bull mid-race?
Yeah, not sure. It's one of those. I'd put it down for me as an emergency food. It's like, okay, just send it to me or whatever. Things aren't going well for me right now. I'm just gonna have a bit of everything. Thanks. What about you?
Well, yeah, I guess it's the fizzy thing that probably gets,
Makes it
every time
challenging.
I drink Coke, it's got to be flat in a race. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It depends on what state you're in, I suppose, doesn't it? Really, to be fair?
Exactly. But a bit of brownie, I think that needs to be done next time. I think I'll line a bit of brownie up for
And
for this race.
a big handful of jet planes.
Yeah,
Big,
that's
hand,
right,
in a
that's right.
pocket in your bag or something, so they
Yeah,
mush together.
And that's why I like those blocks because they
Mhm.
are more chewable. The old jet planes are quite hard to chew sometimes, and potentially a choking hazard.
Hey, just before we go on, because we're now going to go to part 2 of your conversation with Cushla about nutrition on the bike. I do just want to say, mate, and I want to wish you a happy birthday.
Is that
Do you
right?
know what today is?
Today, actually, yes, I do know what today is. Gosh, I almost forgot our anniversary, Angus.
It is our 100th episode of our CP podcast, and what better way to have our 100th episode than with the WHAKA 100? How well did that time in?
That's right. Yeah, absolutely one of our favorite events. So, so good, isn't it? 100 episodes. We started a while back, way back in lockdown, and we've done lots of different stuff. Talked to lots of amazing guests over the time, and learned lots of stuff as well. I think that's the best thing, and our community sort of sharing their ideas, etc., with us as well. So, no, so good. And thanks for anchoring the show and pushing the buttons and making sure we keep heading the right direction as we go.
Oh, it's been an absolute great journey. It's been a marathon. We could use that in tonight's show, couldn't we? It's been a real marathon along the way. But I'm pretty privileged to have been there to, like I said, to flick that on-air switch that very first time we went live on air. So, mate, happy birthday, happy 100 episodes to the CP Media podcast. But let's hear from Cushla again, eh?
Yep, let's talk on the bike nutrition. Welcome back, Cushla. We want to talk about on the bike nutrition as well. And this is super important, as is the baseline nutrition that we've just spoken about. But I mean, you can be the fittest person in the field, but if you don't fuel your body properly, you're not going to finish first, are you? That's at that top end, but we'll also want to think about actually maybe making it to the finish line or just finishing with a smile on your face and actually enjoying your day out is a key part of it as well, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're going to not have a very fun day if you're out there for several hours and not fueling very well.
No, that's right. And it's also a chance to kind of enjoy some snacks as well, isn't it? Like enjoy some good sort of like sport nutrition is generally wouldn't be seen as healthy baseline nutrition, is it? Like carbohydrate content and let's get some sugar on board as a general rule.
Yeah, a really good example of that, I say, is the only place I'm a big fan of sugar sweetened beverages is in sport nutrition. That's exactly where they're needed. But in everyday nutrition, like, of course, you wouldn't want to be drinking sugary sports drink or a fizzy drink all day, would you?
Mm-hmm. No, that's right. That's right. So let's, speaking of fizzy drinks and sports drinks and things, let's kick off with hydration. How important is that? And why is that? So I guess it's almost the most important thing, eh?
Crucial. Yeah. If you think of it, hydration's vital for your blood volume and your whole plumbing system, if you think of it like that. And the more dehydrated you get, the harder your heart has to work to get the same amount of fluid around your body. So you can see how it starts to impact you physiologically, and also it makes you feel like rubbish. And you can actually have quite significant performance declines from being dehydrated, but also from being overhydrated. That can also be really dangerous as well. So it's important to have a good in between there and get the right amount of hydration.
As soon as you said being overhydrated can be bad as well, that's when you're like, oh heck, maybe I how do I get that right? Because you don't want to get that wrong either way, do you? What are some guidelines around that?
With knowing hydration?
Yeah. I guess making sure you have enough, but then you don't want to overdo it either.
Yeah. Look, I think with any endurance athlete, I would really encourage you to do sweat rate testing, especially if you're in an event that's like ultra endurance, so getting 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours or more, because the risk of, if you're over or under hydrating constantly for many hours on end, becomes quite significant with that. So do sweat rate testing. I can go into details, or you're more than welcome to do that with a sports dietitian.
Yeah. So what are some basic rules about how we test our sweat rate?
Well, outside of a lab situation, if you're just at home, which most people are, you just need a good set of digital scales that go to 0.1 kg, and you need to be weighing yourself before and after the session. You need to be taking record of like what the weather conditions were, the intensity, the time you were out for, the length of time your session was, and also if you consumed any fluid or food during that as well. And you'd weigh your bottles before and after. And then you come back, remove your clothing, any extra sweat, and weigh yourself again and note down the difference. Most importantly, you need to do repeated tests several times. I've seen many people go out and do 1 or 2 tests in a environment, like say on Zwift, in their races outside in a hot environment or cold environment. It's not going to mimic very well all what the race conditions are going to be like.
The on the bike in Zwift is really interesting, just to say how much can I sweat and go that end often, isn't it? And it's amazing how much weight that you can lose in an hour if you're on Zwift and there's not much sort of wind flow and things like that around you. So interesting. But yeah, you're totally right. Like it's about the intensity and and how you're riding your bike. And I hear that the WHAKA crew have got a sunny, nice sort of not too hot, but sort of mid-range day for us as well. So we've got to be wary of that as well. But it could be cold.
Got to have that long-term forecast in mind already.
Exactly. Cool. So hydration is key. So I guess the next thing to talk about in regards to hydration is how are we getting on board? Because like it could come like Tour de France, drink bottles, etc. Camelback options. There's lots of drink stations around. So what are some recommendations there?
The most important thing with hydration is that it goes in your mouth. And I think a lot of people think, oh yeah, I'll be able to, consume this amount per hour or whatever you need. But then because they're so nervous or it's more technical, they're just not getting in their nutrition or their hydration. So I think having options and practicing with that is so important. And again, I can never emphasize this enough, but train as you would race. So practice with what you'll be doing. If you're going to use drink bottles, how much can you carry on your bike at one time? And are you confident at grabbing your drink bottles and drinking from them during like trickier parts of the course? Or are you going to only feel confident if you're stopped? Or are you going to use a camelback? Or, what's your strategy going to be? And then thinking about, okay, how long between aid stations am I going to be able to carry X amount of fluid for? And is that going to be enough for me? Or am I going to be out of fluid and still have 2 hours to go to the next aid station? All these logistical things need to be thought about as well.
Yeah, that's right. And I'd recommend for, 98% of the field, really most people should be rolling with a camelback, wearing that on their back, because you can carry more. And also you can throw the tube in your mouth. You can be drinking on a downhill and then just spit it out. Whereas you can't do that trying to put a drink bottle back away. There are sections of four-wheel drive track where you can actually, eat some food and have a drink out of the drink bottle. So yes, have your drink bottle, but use it when you can use it. But then the camelback is the thing that you're kind of getting through at the same time. And I think the other key thing that's tricky with a camelback or a hydration vest is you don't know how much you've had either. Like I've had races where people have got to the finish line and they've still got the thing full, and they've just added another 2 kilos onto their body as they're trying to carry up and around the course, and they haven't actually drunk anything. That's a tricky thing as well, isn't it?
It is tricky. A little thing I've done, which I tell people as a tip, it's a little bit funny, but if you have to rely on a camelback and a bladder, it is tricky to know how much you've had. So get in your kitchen, have your camelback there, take a few normal swigs as you would like you're on the bike, but then spit it back into a measuring jug and get an idea of, okay, if I take like a couple of swigs for a full mouthful, how much fluid is that? And then if you kind of think, okay, if I try and have a couple of swigs every 10 minutes, I know I'm roughly getting this amount of fluid, which is this much of the Camelback. Like that's a good rough way to try and get an idea of using one of them.
Yeah. No, that's really good, isn't it? Because then you can go, okay, well, I need 10 swigs across the course of a half an hour or whatever that might be. And then there's also like, I actually need to have a proper drink rather than just little sips, because sometimes you don't actually get much in a little sip. You think you're getting something, but you're not actually having too much. And I think the other key thing is most of the time, it's better to be carrying it in your body rather than on your back. So if in doubt, just have another drink, kind of thing. And it's you generally, like, we can overdo it, but generally if you've aware of that, you're probably going to go okay.
It takes a lot of fluid to become over hydrated, but if you are gradually doing that over many hours, you can see how the risk does increase. That's probably one of the main reasons I do sweat rates testing with endurance athletes. It's actually to avoid overhydration.
Okay, right. Yeah. And part of that overhydration is what's in your drink bottle too, isn't it? Water versus carbohydrate, sports drink versus how much salt's in there as well. So tell me a little bit more about that in terms of, I guess, what should we be having in a drink bottle?
Yeah, if you're wanting efficiency with your fueling and hydration, sports drink's the way to go. Absolutely. And in terms of what kind of sports drink, isotonic is going to be best. So isotonic means it's the same concentration as the fluids in your body. And most sports drinks are designed to be like that. So that's between a concentration of 5 to 8% or 5 to 8 grams of carb per 100 ml. So drinks like Pure, Made as Directed, or Tailwind, or Morton 160, all of them fall in that sort of range. All of them come with crucial electrolytes as well. So you often see sodium listed, and then there can be other ones in there too. But sodium is really important. It's one of the most abundant in our sweat. And some people sweat a lot of it, some people not as much. But regardless, you need to make sure you're getting it back in. Cool. So sports drink in a drink bottle, and then we're getting the carbohydrates we need, we're getting the fluid we need, and getting the salts we need. And then also the key thing with that is it's going to be the right concentration that's going to be absorbed into our body, rather than drinking water and eating some food and maybe some gels and jelly beans or whatever else is going on. So it's going to help to make sure that we know that we're at the right levels. So how much carbohydrate should we be taking on board as an hourly rate? What are some guidelines there? That can range between 30 and 100 grams an hour for most endurance athletes. And that's a massive range. It really depends on how much a person can tolerate, what they've trained with, what's realistically they can actually carry and get in on the course. Sometimes that's a real issue with adventure type races and things. WHAKA maybe not so much with the aid stations though. And also just how much they can physiologically stomach. How much can I cope with it without it swirling and twirling and like feeling that I'm going to be sick? And how much you need per hour may vary depending on the total duration of how long you'll be out there for. So if you're only going to be out there for 2 hours, that's going to look so different to you starting your miler, Richard, like completely different needs per hour. Yeah, cool. So have you got a general middle of the road that most people are like, we shoot for about this, but you could be a bit less than this, but you could be more than this? Like, is it like, have we got a middle of the road type? For most people is a good starting point. I would say 50 to 60 is a really nice target. And then if you can tolerate a lot more and you're more competitive and can get on heaps, then awesome, shoot for the higher ends. But if you're like just someone who's maybe a bit more low key out there just to complete it, quite a low intensity, then 40 grams might be appropriate for you. It really does depend. But 50 to 60 is probably a good not target. Bad starting place. Yeah. And if you're thinking 50 to 60, like most gels are 25 grams, aren't they? So that's 2 of those. Around about, so gives you a bit of a starting point. And as you talked about, like a fist size, like is that 50 grams of carbohydrates? Like we're talking about jelly beans or dried apricots, that sort of stuff. It really would depend on the type of carb you've got there. Okay, right. Pure sugar or a potato, Right, okay, 100%. Nice. So what are some food options that we could, speaking of potatoes, that we could roll with on our bike? Because once we're starting to go beyond 4, 5, 6 hours, sort of when we're getting up into the 100 and the 100 miler, we're going to start to feel hungry. We can't just roll with the sugary stuff, can we? If you stomach it and you feel well on something and you've trained with it, then go for it, basically. So again, no rules. Ideally, we want nice carb-rich foods, but when you're out there for hours and hours on end, there's only so much really high sugar stuff you can take before you're really sick of it and get that palate fatigue. So it's important to have lots of options. And again, train as you would race. So they all need to be things you've utilized in training rides. So if we're thinking about carb-rich products, we could start with the more sports-specific products. So, you know, you have your, I actually have one here, I always have them at my desk. You have your gels, they're your classic go-to. That's a product. You have your sports drinks. So they're really sports nutrition specific. You have things like Goo Chews and Cliff Blocks and those energy bites and lollies. Then you can just have more your everyday foods, like your cheap muesli bars from the supermarket, you know, your Fleming's type bars or Oatly, what are they, Oatly slices, any of those.
Because they're quite high in carbs or sugar, aren't they? Those cheaper ones, generally.
They are, and they do the job. It's just energy, it's carbohydrate. Or you have your more products that are designed to be, you know, sold for athletes, like your OSM bars or M's power cookies and those kinds of things. Then you have more whole food options. You know, you could boil up or roast some spuds, add on some extra salt to them. You could have white bread with whatever fillings you like. You could have bliss balls. You could make your own bars or bliss balls, or like the options are endless, really.
Yeah, good. No, just as part of that as well, I'm just thinking of, like, if you can see that, it's a bit dark on my back in the screen, but like a top tube bag that you can put on the front of your bike, so you don't have to poke around for pockets in the back of your top. That, like this one here that I've got, works quite well. It's just got a Velcro lid. You just jump in there, fish around. What am I going to get? It's a bit of a lucky dip, and then I'm going to eat that. Then the lid snaps closed, and then I keep on biking. So, so thinking of logistics and how I'm actually going to have it makes a big difference as well. When we're and if it's easier to get, I'm more likely to have it rather than like I've got it deep in my bag. I'm not going to stop because I'm too excited and I don't have it.
I think I have that exact same Velcro bag.
There we go.
Fantastic. They're really good.
No, they are good, aren't they? And the other thing I found, like I've got like a standard Camelback that I've used in the past as well, but the one I've used also has got like chest pockets, and I actually found that I was able to get them open and fish stuff out and back again, rather than the waist belt ones. Pockets are a bit harder to get into. So play with your gear as well. How am I going to actually access this food to make sure I actually get it in? I think one other key point around food is also, like you talked about, sort of what do I enjoy, and play with different options. But it's also some food is actually, when you're huffing and puffing, it's actually tastes really dry and it's chewy and it's hard to get into, isn't it? It's a bit left field, but I've actually went to a recommendation of a bakery up in Rotorua last year for the miler, and actually went for the custard donut. That actually went down quite well. That was probably K100. I was probably 8 hours into it, so it went down quite well at that stage. Probably like intensity's a bit lower, so you sort of can manage that a little bit more.
Something with custard, thank you.
Did go well. It was like, I think also with food and sport, it's not necessary. It might not be perfect, but it's going to boost morale. So like, oh, look at me, look at what I'm eating right now. That feels pretty good, and it needs to be out of the aid station, so it's not squashed in your pocket for too long either. So so that's the other thing to think about there.
Oh, and those like ultra endurance events, making the plans for people, we always put in like morale boost options, and they may be like the mini favorite bars and things like that.
Yes, nice.
And if it works and they know it's going to sit well, why not? Like, we all need something like that when we've been out there for several hours.
Yeah. Nice. And the other thing to think about when we're riding the 100 and the 100 miler, the 100, you'll come through the aid station with a drop bag option that you can put there the morning of or the day before. Check the logistics around that and timing. The miler will come through their aid station twice, the 100K once. But what I've found, like having the old Camelback there that's fresh and new and ready to go, that you just drop one and then pick up the fresh new one, makes a massive difference. Opposed to the first year I did the race, we actually put more sports drink in the Camelback and just faff and time. But if it's really rewarding when you pass people without trying, because you're just efficient through that time because you're all ready to go. Drop one, take the next one, and carry on. Makes a big difference.
definitely worth the investment of getting a second vest for that reason.
Yeah, that's right. Or steal or borrow one, not steal.
Yeah.
Borrow one
Borrow.
of friends.
Yeah. Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice work. So like just rolling through each event, we've talked, I guess from my experience, talked about the 100 and the miler. What about the 50K event? We're going to take sort of between 2 and 5, or maybe even the 25K event that's going to take between an hour and maybe 3 hours kind of thing. What are some guidelines for maybe those shorter events that we should be thinking about?
If you're going out and you know you're going to take less than 90 minutes for, say, a really fast 25K, I don't know if the 50Ks would do it in under 90 minutes, you really don't need much. All you may benefit from is a swig of sports drink and a bit of fluid, but that is it. And that's given you fuel well beforehand. So 90 minutes is kind of the cutoff there. And then the next kind of window I'd talk about would be about 90 minutes to 2 hours, and then sort of 2 to 4 hours. So 90 minutes to 2 hours, again, you're not going to go out and need to smash 90 grams of carb an hour. It's not that long. It's still endurance, but you could probably get away with, say, 60-ish, 40 to 60 grams an hour. And that could literally be through the use of some sports drink and maybe 1 or 2 other food items or gel or whatever you enjoy. So they're a lot more straightforward.
So we're thinking like drink bottle on your back, but like just sort of a litre that you're going to get through, or 2 litres depending on how long you're taking. So sort of under an hour, just thinking about hydration up until 90 minutes sort of thing. Around that mark, that's when things start changing, that I need to start thinking about some carbohydrates as well.
And that's the same for training. So please don't go out and don't train on hardly anything. You need to be fueling your training well, like we talked about with regards to recovery and doing better in your everyday nutrition. Don't just think, oh, I'll just train low and hope that everything comes together on race day. On your key sessions of the week, I cannot stress enough, train as you would race. Yeah,
good. And that's the thing, isn't it? It's about building up to simulating what our race day is going to be like, and the time we're going to be on our bike, how I'm going to manage that. Am I going to be comfortable? But what is my nutrition going to be? And actually, can I stomach it based on those things? So, and then I'm going to enjoy myself more and there's not going to be any surprises.
And little things just logistically too, like you're saying with your pack when you've got it on. Actually, I prefer my solid food items on this side because it's easier for me to get, and actually I can sneak a little bottle here or whatever it is. You work those things out in training and everything goes to plan on race day. That's right. And where do I put my rubbish? Like where does that go, kind of thing? All those little bits and pieces as well. What about variety? Variety is key, isn't it? Like I find that the longer things get, you just get sick of the same stuff, that flavor fatigue. I guess it's just a matter of making sure that you practice with a whole bunch of stuff and then pack it all and then see what you feel like on the way. And that could be the benefit of like drop bags, if they're an option at certain aid stations, is having a whole heap of different food items there that you can go, actually, I'm so glad I had these other options because what I planned is not what I feel like at the moment. So that's one way of doing that. But yeah, it would just be like every hour having your carb targets, and within that just having different items you can rotate through, so that you're not just having the exact same things every hour, because you will get sick of it.
And then you won't have it. And then you go downwards and then you have a sad face at the finish line. Yeah, exactly. One of the things I've found, this was especially for the 100 mile I did last year, it starts in the morning. It was only like a few degrees. It was so cold when we got underway. And like I went with like that sports drink because it was just easy. Like on the bike, it was easier. I know what I'm drinking. But actually what I did is I needed to drink that for the energy, but I was actually ended up overhydrating. I wasn't overhydrated as sort of getting dangerous, but I just had to get off the bike and go to the toilet too many times. It's like, oh God, got to go again. And one thing I found that's since then's been really useful is like some gels and like a soft flask. And then you can sort of have something extra that's easy, that's carbohydrate, that I can sort of just vary the amount of concentration that I need. Like if it's colder, it doesn't need to be so, it can be a little bit sweeter. But if it's hot, I can't cope with that. I need to drink more. So having a bit of a range to be able to move through and adapt depending on how you're feeling is important as well.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, but it comes with, as you say, practice it. So then you know what it feels like and how you actually go. You can't just turn up and do one thing and hope it for the best.
Yeah.
So to finish up, Cushla, is there anything that we might not have covered, or any sort of other ideas or anything like that that you'd like to kind of just make sure people have got dialed in for race day?
A final message I would like to emphasize is thinking about, you have training blocks, you have a specific training block for WHAKA, in each week, there will be likely a key session of the week that's your long ride. Maybe let's say it's on the weekend, you go and do it on a Saturday or Sunday. Treat those sessions like it's race day. And I mean that in terms of the time you need to get up and practice eating your breakfast, what that breakfast will be, and what time you're actually getting on the bike. Because if you're not even practicing that and you're just training in the afternoons and not even practicing race day breakfast, how do you think it's going to happen on race day? And then on the bike, okay, you've maybe got some targets that you're trying, you've got some different foods, and just practicing as many different options as you can. When something works, stick with it, but don't be afraid in the training to try different things, because that's the time to do that, not on race day. And then by the time you get to race day, you should feel so confident with your plan and all the logistical side of things and your gear and what you're using, that it's one less variable, one less thing you're stressed and nervous about.
Yeah, that's right. And if you write those things down, like in your training diary, make notes about what went well or what didn't go well, because you kind of forget those things. And then you can sort of pull that together just to write your plan down of what my nutrition is going to be. And then it means that is one less thing that's swirling in your head in the morning and the day before. You know what you're going to do, and then you just need to go around and execute it and have a fun day out. Nice work. Brilliant. Hey, thanks so much for your time, Cushla. Really appreciate it. Cushla is an awesome dietitian. You're fantastic to work with, and really recommend if those people are out there that either want the hand with their sort of baseline nutrition or just dial in a race plan for WHAKA. That's what you're here for, to support athletes so they can have an awesome day out and have a smile on their face. Yeah,
I'd love to hear from anyone. I love endurance athletes.
Yeah, good job. Awesome. Well, you carry on with your training. Enjoy riding your bike when you get the opportunity to, and we'll look forward to catching up with you soon. Good job. Thanks, Cushla.
Sharing some great knowledge there with you, Rich. Hey, mate, listening away there, reading some comments. We've got some fantastic comments.
Absolutely.
And I just want to read a little story. It's actually half a story here by the looks of it. Quickly, we are pushed for time, but I'll quickly get through this. Nigel McElroy, he was saying that he ran into Kevin Leishman. He's a very handy mountain biker himself and long-time successful coach. But they got talking in the car park at Karapoti one day about a secret sauce bottle of flat Coke. So Nigel goes on to try this, and he got it out at the bottom of the last big climb and had this Coke and got back to the car park and run into Cabin, and Cabin asked, or he sort of said that it didn't feel like it did anything at the time. And Cabin said, well, how do you feel now? And he says, I feel pretty good, really, to be fair. And therein laid the problem. He'd clearly had it too late. So he felt really good when he got to the car park, but didn't feel any benefits of it there. So I guess the moral of that story is actually knowing when to use this nutrition, right? Got to get the nutrition, got to work out what works, but also when to apply it and how to get best use out of it.
That's right. And I think that's one really important point with sport nutrition is if you're feeling a bit low, it's already too late. If you're feeling highs and lows as a result of having stuff, you've probably left it too late. You shouldn't feel the lows because it should be pretty even along the way. So, that's a great comment, Nigel. Really appreciate that. That might be almost going in the draw to win, just about.
Could be. The other thing I was thinking about is, and I saw you showing your nice camelback and things there. Did you ever see the photograph that came out of WHAKA once with the guy who was trying to fill his camelback while he was moving? Did you see that one?
No, I didn't. No,
I'd go something like this. I think he was trying to fill his camelback as he's trying to refill it full of water out of the creek there by the look.
Does look empty, doesn't it? You'd think he'd be man enough just to ride to the finish line with that. For those that are, do you want to explain that? Because not everybody's watching. There could be some audio going on.
That's 100%. There'll be a lot of people out there that will be listening to this as you're out training for the WHAKA 100. So I will explain that a little bit. Of course, we are really continuing to take the fun out of Richard here for what year was that? What even year was that?
Oh, I'm not sure. It was a while ago.
We were there together. It must have been 2017 or something.
Something like that. I think I was waiting for you for a long time, so I got bored. So I was like, I'll just have a wee play in the creek. Was that what it was?
So anyway, it's a famous photo that if you follow WHAKA 100 on any of their socials, you would have seen it at some stage. It is Richard Greer, not quite clearing the creek gap, and he did manage to go for a little swim.
Yes, exactly.
And we take great pleasure. Yes, Robert Thompson, you're absolutely right. It never gets old. Never gets old. That's 100%. Hey, Emma Jane just actually wants to know what brand is your top tube bag?
Oh, it's just a BBB, just a simple one from the old bike shop. So, like, bike shops have lots of different brands and things in there. So, just go and check out to see what they've got available on the day. And it's just, I guess, the key thing is something that's sort of big enough, and also wants to, like, this one's got a Velcro flip top lid, so you can just get into it, and just slaps closed, so you don't have to have lots of faff with it.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I've actually got I actually think it's a specialized one, even, maybe, to be fair. And it's actually got a magnet on it. So when you flick it, it actually comes back around and just like magnet shuts, it stays shut.
Yeah,
so it's
good.
an old one that I've been hanging on to for a very, very long time. Well, mate, that's probably getting close to the end of our episode here, episode 2 of our WHAKA 100. Oh, what are you going to do there, mate? Got your flag
No,
up?
I've just got one more question here that we haven't answered, that we didn't ask Cushla about. What are your thoughts on electrolyte capsules? I just wanted to quickly see if I could answer that a little bit. I think the key thing with those is that if you're getting electrolytes, like if you're on sports drinking and gels and blocks and those things, they've all got electrolytes in them based on sweat rates and things like that. So if you're looking at those, well, then don't worry about the electrolyte capsules. It's just another sort of complication. But if you're fueling yourself with water and food, well, then some electrolytes are really useful for you, because you're not getting those from your sports drink or your gels or those other products.
Nice.
Yep.
So just to wrap up there, mate, a big thank you to KODA Nutrition for sponsoring tonight's episode. Of course, don't forget, they are giving away a 20% store-wide discount for anybody that's participated in the WHAKA 100. Get across to kodanutrition.co.nz and use Hello WHAKA 100 as your code there to get 20% off. And or for everybody that has commented in our episode today, you've still got a few days to, if you're watching this a little bit delayed or listening, quickly jump onto Facebook and make a comment. You'll go in the draw to win a KODA Nutrition pack that we'll give away at the next episode, mate.
Absolutely, yes. And how are you going to celebrate 100 episodes? You're going to go and dive into that recovery routine?
That'd be rude not to. Well, mate, celebrating that has been actually just being here for the 100th with you, mate. That's enough of a celebration for me, for us two to be able to do this together. It's been great. Here's to many more, eh?
Good job. Well done. Thanks for holding us together, Angus, and get out and enjoy riding your bike.
I might actually almost have to do that. I say that every time, don't I? I get all G'd up after one of these things, and let's see. You can hold me to account next time and see how we got on, eh?
Okay, good. We'll check the skin on your knees and how much mud you've got available. Yeah.
Thank you to everybody for tuning in, for listening, for watching, for however you do this. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. We'll see you in a short time.
You've been listening to the WHAKA 100 podcast, brought to you by Team CP.
Skull. So much fun, lots of camaraderie and lots of laughs.
If you dig the show, make sure to like, rate, and review.
Let's just see how